Retail Week is brought to you by Nutrisphere N, Nitrogen Fertilizer Manager, protecting your nitrogen from all three forms of loss.
Hello, welcome to another edition of CropLife Retail Week. I have a special guest in studio with me today, Brian Reuwee from the Agricultural Retailers Association. Brian, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Eric.
Appreciate it. If you could, give us a little update. I know we've heard lots of stories about what's going on in D.C. in general with Congress and our friends in the government, but tell me more about what ARA is tracking in terms of issues as we go into the 2017 season.
Sure, happy to do that. What I think one of the things that we're seeing in DC right now is a lot of discussion about regulatory reform. We've had some rollback on PSM final rule, which has been a welcome change in tone from the previous administration in terms of ag retail. Have also seen. I think that's one of the bigger reliefs for us in terms of this administration. Some other regulatory issues that have been on the table are kind of melting away to some extent.
Yeah, like Waters of the North.
Waters of the U.S. is another great example of one of those that's we're seeing some resolution and seeing that move off our plate, and so along with a lot of other organizations in ag, we're happy to see that kind of be set aside.
Well, I know you mentioned PSM, process safety management. I know I attended a couple of sessions a year ago talking about it extensively on that topic and the fact that it was coming down the line. Then the rules were changed, so basically OSHA did not have the jurisdiction to follow through with that. But was that a topic we're going to see come back? Retailers should be dealing with, thinking about going into 17 and 18.
I wouldn't say that retailers should back off any plans for. Let me back up a little bit on that. The ARA and TFI, our lawsuit was successful. We successfully challenged OSHA. And the retail exemption for PSM is in place. Mm-hmm. For the foreseeable future, that the indication is that OSHA will not pursue PSM and going through rulemaking to make that a final rule.
Okay.
That's been our indication. The OSHA pulled out. They had in terms of the lawsuit, they had one more opportunity to say, do we want to take this to the Supreme Court? And my understanding is that they've let that deadline go.
Okay.
So they're not challenging that decision from the circuit court. Indications that we have from the agency are that they're not going to pursue a formal rulemaking process any further.
But as you said, there's PSM, some of the not necessarily requirements, but recommendations, if you want to call them that,
mm-hmm.
were actually pretty good. They're things that ag retailers should probably think about nonetheless.
They're, as retailers look at remodels and refurbishing equipment and put it in new facilities, definitely something that should be top of mind.
Okay.
Because it may come back around. It's just the weight of regulation doesn't stop. So keep that in mind as you're looking at your facilities.
Very good. All right, well, we'll take a short break right now, but when we come back, we'll continue to talk with Brian about some of the key issues going on in Washington, D.C. today.
Over the 9+ years, they've done over 400 trials, side-by-side replicated trials, and we've shown that 90% of the time we've had a positive yield response with Nutrisphere. So 90% of the time a crop producer out of those 400+ trials could expect a positive response. That positive response is average 10 bushel an acre across all 400+ trials.
So welcome back. We're still here with Brian Reuwee from ARA talking about what's going on regulatorily in D.C. Tell me a little about the recent regulation we've been just chatting about, the electronic
logging devices.
Thank you.
So the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration has published a final rule to require electronic logging devices in commercial vehicles going forward. And so this is a regulation that ARA has been challenging and haven't reached a resolution with that. And so as far as we can tell right now, that regulation is moving forward, and we're trying to help retailers understand what their requirements are and help them to get into compliance with that rule.
So what would be some of the requirements under this ruling for ag retailers that they currently are not doing?
That's an answer I don't have. Again, that's our policy guys are really into the details on that. And unfortunately, it's not something that I'm.
Well, very good then.
Sorry.
That's all right. If our viewers want more information, then can you recommend a website or a phone number, perhaps?
Yeah, you please get in touch with our senior vice president of public policy, Richard Gupton. Call him in our office or send him an email. He's got all the details on that. We've hosted a couple of webinars on that regard, and those things are available to members as a resource on our website as well.
Good. All right, very good. And we'll put the website address here on the screen. But Brian, thanks for joining us today. Appreciate your time, and we'll see you all real soon. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you to this week's video sponsor, Nutrisphere N Fertilizer Manager from Verdesian Life Sciences.